E-commerce has become a major driver of China's retail economy, and more than half of those online purchases are made by women. Liang is an associate professor at Willamette University with a focus on financial and economic development in China, and she explains how women's changing roles in the workforce are helping fuel this trend.
There are 480 million Chinese women consumers, and some demographics right now, about 280 million of them are of the age of 25 to 45. So that's the prime, consumer group. And they're also making a lot of money these days. It was estimated that women are making about 3 trillion Chinese yuan by 2020. And so the total amount of female consumption is estimated to reach 4.5 trillion yuan this year. And that translates to $650 billion. So it is a very large and rising consumption market.
Well, what are Chinese women buying? What brands are they buying? Are they more domestic or foreign brands, or does it really depend on the items?
It really depends on the items, but one thing that is clear is that the Chinese women now are increasingly spending money on themselves. So in addition to spending a lot of their household incomes, somewhere between 30 and 40% of their household income they spend on children and their husbands and their family members. But now they're also increasing spending on themselves, buying a lot of treat yourself type of products, from buying books to cosmetics to vacations. They're just spending a lot of money on themselves now, and consider that as a long-term investment in themselves, right, to accumulate social capital, to advance their careers. And they are also contributing a lot to luxurious consumption. So to go back to a point about what kind of brands they buy, nowadays they pay a lot more attention to the quality of products, the brand names. They are less sensitive about the prices, so they're buying a lot of luxury consumptions. As you know, the Chinese account for 1/3 of the global luxury spending, and Chinese women account for half of the Chinese total luxury consumption. And that is a much higher number than if you look at, for example, in 1995, and women only account for 10% of the luxury consumption in China.
What about when it comes to online shopping versus shopping in those brick and mortar stores?
So according to the very recent Economic Intelligence Unit survey, they surveyed about 55,000 women in China and in some other Asian economies. And it was found that 70% of the interviewees, the Chinese women consumers, they prefer online shopping. And the reason they gave are, some of the usual ones. It's easier for them to compare prices. They are also easier to find varieties of products, and it's also convenient for them. And they're also more tech savvy. So I think all these reasons, lead them to online shopping.
How are companies and brands marketing to Chinese women? What's their strategy?
I think, there's a lot of social pressure and peer pressure for Chinese women to, spend money. And there are a lot of social media, there are a lot of TV advertisements. So that's one of the reasons that I think the major reason that a lot of women engage in the so-called conspicuous consumption or emulative consumption. So I think TV advertisement is very influential. Women constitute about 60% of the total TV audiences in China. They also spend a lot of time online surfing. So I think for advertisements, they become very influential, they become very powerful. But one thing that is interesting, though, is the Chinese women are more pragmatic still compared to their Western counterparts. In other words, they still engage less in impulse purchases, although that number is still going up year by year.
Liang, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.